In February 2022, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change published their 6th assessment report. Its verdict is dire. Climate change has already caused substantial damages and irreversible losses across all ecosystems and contributed to humanitarian crises around the world. Around 3.5 billion people, nearly half the world population, live in contexts that are vulnerable to climate change. This will increasingly put pressure on food production and access, and significantly increase ill health and premature deaths from the near to long term. The report found that it is already too late to avoid or reverse some of the impacts of climate change. As a result, reducing the severity of future humanitarian disasters requires us both to reduce and mitigate our greenhouse gas emissions, whilst also adapting to be more resilient.
You don't know how helpful a stable climate is until you don't have it anymore. I remember one politician saying to me, it's a bit like running water or electricity. We're so used to living with those things that we can't imagine what it would be like to live without them.
So far in this series, we have looked at the challenges of transforming our systems of energy, transport, and the built environment to cut carbon emissions to net zero. But as the effects of climate change are felt around the world, we need to add a new requirement: adaptation. Integrating all of the challenges we face into one transformative strategy is not easy, but we've already seen how systems thinking can help us do that.
Systems thinking, I see it as a way to grapple with the world as it is, which is complex and interconnected. And systems thinking offers a way to work with that complexity and with that interconnection instead of fighting against it. And so in the context of reaching goals like net zero, those aren't incremental goals, right? Those are goals that we're going to have to leap towards faster than any energy transition in human history. The danger of not using a systems thinking approach to tackle net zero is creating unanticipated problems or creating short-term solutions, but with long-term consequences that future generations will have to pay the price for. So, not only does systems thinking give us exactly the tools we need for transformation, but it also is sort of a safety guard against some of the worst failure modes.
In this final episode, we'll look at a resilient transition to infrastructure, economy, and lifestyles, which are not only net zero, but also protect against extreme weather events and environments. And get to know 2 system approach tools that are vital for developing an integrated climate strategy. This is Kibera, one of Africa's largest and most densely populated informal settlements, in Nairobi, the capital of Kenya. Here, sustainability is less a question of emissions reduction, though replacing dangerous kerosene fuels is a part of it. Kibera's challenge is instead the results of climate change. Over 50% of the community's households flooded in 2015, with rainfall rates projected to increase by up to 1/3 due to climate change.
The density and demand for space has driven development right up to the water's edge. And after any rainfall, this type of activity, of course, causes flooding, which is not helped by the fact that waste removal is almost non-existent. And therefore drains tend to get blocked with solid waste, which also means that the environment can also be extremely polluted, contaminated waters, and the grounds equally contaminated as well.
With climate change being so directly linked to well-being and economic priorities, how do they approach a resilient transition? A group of engineers and architects from the Kounkuey Design Institute are working with residents to answer that question.
KDI, I think beyond being students in university who were studying various disciplines around engineering, design, architecture, etc., were quite keen on using their skills, not just to make nice and fancy buildings or places, but to actually cause change and to also create equity and to advance social justice.
The purpose of the project is to construct public spaces which provide environmental and economic benefits for over 125,000 residents.
Most of the sites are located along the river. It allows for us to do climate-adapted infrastructure and also create community awareness while providing safe water, sanitation, playgrounds, and services typically only found in formal parts of Nairobi. This has dramatically improved climate resilience for around 8,000 households, especially the low-income and single-mother families that tend to live in the cheapest housing by the river and whose children also play on the banks. So I think those are some of the important things that we've put in place.
The project owes its success to the bottom-up approach it takes to co-designing solutions with the local communities it serves. To do so, they partner with at least one community-based organisation for each of its sites.
The site, at the end of the day, belongs to the community. They feel that it is an investment they've made. They then tend to protect it where they see it is at risk, and they're also more likely to maintain it and even improve on it and let it grow further. We don't want to create a system of dependency. We want this to be community-led, community-owned, community-run, a community asset, because it starts with people and it's built on the principles of participation, integration, and network change. It is a way of modeling how people-focused design and engineering can lead to productive public spaces that enhance communities' socioeconomic status, provide for their holistic well-being, that there are no shortcuts. Because when you start engaging the community from getting their ideas and prioritizing their ideas, the process can actually take a very long time. We feel that it's an important thing to do, and it's an important way of doing infrastructure upgrading.
When it comes to engineering solutions to climate change, local context is everything. But understanding success stories like the ones we've seen in this series offers us methods and ideas that can be tailored to any net zero challenge. First, a reminder. Why do we need new ways of tackling climate change? In a net zero world, our systems of energy, transport, and buildings will be fundamentally different from what we know today. The transition will require changes in the human habits and economic structures that create our demands for energy and resources. In previous episodes, we saw how infrastructure systems are so highly connected and interdependent that none of them can transform without the others. That makes it difficult to answer even simple questions about net zero technology until we understand the bigger net zero strategy.
You need to make sure that your strategy covers all the important sectors, transport, industry, housing, and so on. And you need to be really clear what emissions reductions you're trying to get out of each sector over what timescale, and make sure that individual government departments and industrial sectors know the part that they have to play.
But how do we get to that strategy? And how do we make it work? This is where our two tools, called Deliberative Democracy and Multisolving, can help us embed the systems approach we need. Let's go deeper into each, starting with Deliberative Democracy. To achieve an integrated strategy for reaching a resilient net zero, and to bring the best engineering contribution to the transition, it's vital to understand the net zero lives people want. But understanding the challenges, the solutions, and the trade-offs for a city or a nation is very complicated, and political processes struggle to engage with citizens about such a long-term future. That's where deliberative democracy comes in, as a way of laying out the specific local risks, resources, and potential solutions for people, and allowing them to reach informed and integrated decisions.
Just before COVID struck, I had this amazing opportunity to be part of Climate Assembly UK. We brought together just over 100 people who were statistically representative of the UK as a whole. We spent 4 weekends working with those people, giving them access to really good information and experts, letting them talk to each other, bring forward their own experience. And we asked them what the UK should do about climate change, how it should achieve that net zero target.
This deliberative process provides feasible strategies negotiated across diverse needs, beliefs, and visions for a net zero world, which is invaluable guidance for policymakers tackling the same challenge. But more importantly, it sets the parameters for the whole transition to net zero by developing a shared vision of a good, sustainable world. But taking advantage of all the opportunities of net zero requires a change in thinking as well. We've seen why a systems approach is necessary to avoid creating unexpected problems. Without a systems approach, we will also miss out on the best opportunities and co-benefits that are all possible in a net zero future.
In 2018, the World Health Organization published this really important study. They said the costs of being on track to net zero are actually outweighed by the health benefits alone. And that's before you even think about new jobs created or the biodiversity benefits of protecting the climate, fewer hospitalizations from respiratory disease. Economically, businesses might experience more productivity. Their workers are going to be healthier and missing work less. The costs of that transformation will largely be felt by, say, the energy minister and the transportation minister. The benefits in that country, though, will show up in other places. The energy minister, the transportation minister, their budgets show a big outlay. What do they have to show as benefits for it? You need to be able to, in some way, convene the whole system and measure the benefits across the whole to seize the kind of opportunities that the World Health Organization is talking about.
But how do we find policies that will help capture those co-benefits? That's where multisolving comes in.
Multisolving is a simple idea. It just means making sure that every investment of time, money, energy, effort that we put in is being directed to solve multiple problems at the same time. One example might be investing to make a city more bikeable and more walkable. It will reduce air pollution. It gives people more access to safe physical activity. Other studies have shown it's actually an economic development opportunity. As people move through a neighborhood or through the city at the speed of their own 2 feet or the speed of a bicycle, they're more likely to stop in a shop, and that's going to help local small businesses.
Multisolving is a simple concept, but there are many barriers to putting it into practice.
One of the most obvious barriers is silos. We've created our systems in ways that have all kinds of barriers between different parts. Sometimes those are jurisdictions. They might be academic disciplines where experts speak different languages, barriers between community organizations and government officials, or between technical experts and community organizations. So all those things get in the way of people implementing these shared solutions.
Getting to an integrated systems approach to net zero may seem like a difficult task, even more difficult when accounting for adaptation as well. But with deliberative democracy, we can set a clear direction of travel towards a net zero which works for everyone, removing some uncertainty about the appropriate solutions in the right scale, tailored to local needs. And with multisolving, we can orient our net zero strategy around achieving the best health, economy and well-being co-benefits from our climate policies. Behaviour change, technology change and economic change are each crucial for the global transition to a resilient net zero. We often see these as separate challenges, but they're not. They're tangled together in systems of human demand, technological services and economic models, which have to be reshaped to work together differently. Interconnected problems require interconnected solutions and a change in how we go about making decisions. For engineering and technology to play their crucial roles in innovation, reconstruction, recycling and ecosystem restoration, they have to be part of a broader transition to a resilient net zero, led by a clear vision of how we want to live differently. Systems thinking lets us navigate this change. With integrated strategies, multisolving, deliberation, and tailored local solutions, we can take control of the transition to net zero and do our best to safeguard the world.